I would insist that the far left poses a long-term existential threat to the Jewish people. And the reason for that is that the main assault on the legitimacy of our story, of the Jewish narrative of the 20th century, the return of the Jewish people home, is coming primarily from the far left. My definition of who the Jews are is that we are a people, we are effectively a people that tells itself a story. We are a story that we tell ourselves about who we think we are. And for that reason, the Passover Seder remains the most essential ritual that unites Jews around the world, because that's the moment when we gather together to retell the story of our origins and to try to understand who we are as a people. And so the assault on our legitimacy, on the legitimacy of our story, the attempt to turn our modern story into a crime is, I believe, an existential threat to us, because there is no Jewish people without our story. And what we're seeing in the last months is a convergence of the far left and the far right. So take, for example, the notion that Jews control Washington or control Congress. If you're on the far right, you'll use a very particular term, which is Zog. Anybody familiar with the term Zog? Zog is a very popular term on the far right, and it's an acronym for Zionist Occupied Government. And that, when you hear the term Zog, you know you're in far right territory. On the far left, we know it's about the Benjamins, it's about buying members of Congress. It is effectively the same accusation. And what we're seeing is an assault on the post-Holocaust Jewish victory of the reclamation of power. And in Israel and in America, Jews reclaimed power in different ways. In Israel, we reclaimed hard power, which is to say, military power. And in America, the Jewish community reclaimed soft power. The power to build alliances, to lobby, to create political force, to use philanthropy strategically. That's the soft power that is now under assault by both the far left and the far right. And of course, the assault against the legitimacy of Israel's hard power has been unfolding for many years now, where we have, every time we find ourselves in a military conflict, we have no right to defend ourselves because we are inherently a war crime. Any Israeli war is a war crime. The news is, the story that I'm unfolding is about to get a little worse. Because at just this moment of intensifying threat to Jewish well-being around the world, the American Jewish-Israeli relationship, rather than becoming stronger and converging, is increasingly fraying. And if you look at the basis for the American Jewish-Israeli relationship traditionally, it depended on really two foundations. The first foundation was a shared sense of responsibility for the Jewish people, for Jewish well-being. And the way that played out was the American Jewish community would initiate certain political movements, for example, the protest movement to save the Jews of Russia, or the effort to rescue the Jews of Ethiopia, which actually was initiated by the American Jewish community. And then Israel would absorb the Jews who would be freed. And the second foundation of our relationship has been a commitment to shared values. The assumption that both communities support an Israel that is both Jewish and democratic. That was a given for most of the last 70 years in our relationship. And today, both of those foundations are under increasing attack. And I'd like to play out a little bit how that's happening. So first of all, the assumption that we will always have each other's back, that we are in a partnership for the well-being, the physical well-being of the Jewish people, I would argue has begun to unravel. And I'll cite two events of the last years, two processes. The first is the obtuseness in Israel regarding American Jewish concern about what the Trump administration means for the future of American society, and through the American society, the future of American Jewry. Israelis, and especially Israeli leaders, have not internalized, have not heard that anxiety. And most Israelis do not understand why Trump is such a threat to American Jews. And it's not, I believe, because he made some foolish comment after Charlottesville. Trump is a threat to American Jews because he is a threat to the post-World War II liberal order that allowed American Jewry to become the most successful diaspora in Jewish history. American Jews can only thrive in a liberal America. Yes. And Trump, who is destroying the culture of civility, who is undermining some very basic assumptions that many of us grew up with in the post-World War II era, that force that he is helping unleash is, if not a direct threat to American Jews as Jews, is in effect as great a threat as if it were a direct threat. The unequivocal embrace of Trump by Netanyahu needs to be unpacked, because the truth is that almost any Israeli prime minister from any party, from the Labor Party rightward, would embrace President Trump, would embrace any American president who would declare himself to be a friend of Israel. But not in the way that Netanyahu has embraced Trump. Netanyahu has gone far beyond the requirements of the American-Israeli relationship and adopted his relationship with Trump as something not just politically necessary, but really a reflection of shared values. That's the message that's coming from the Israeli government, that we have shared values with this administration. Now that has very, very concrete implications for the premise that we have shared values between the two communities. Because if Israel's shared values are the same as Trump's, that excludes 70% of American Jews, maybe more. And the fact that my prime minister has completely ignored the consequences to the future of our relationship really sends the message that we just don't care anymore about this relationship. Now, what makes this more complicated is that the sense of betrayal, and I understand why American Jews would feel betrayed by Israel today, but that sense of betrayal is mutual. And the American Jewish community never fully internalized just how outraged Israelis were by the failure of the American Jewish community to stand unequivocally with Israel on the Iran deal. And I'm bringing up the Iran deal not to reopen that debate, but to make a point about the consequences which we are living with today. Certainly for Netanyahu and his circle, the conclusion was we can no longer depend on liberal American Jews when we are facing an existential crisis. Most of us, or many of us in Israel, perceive the Iran threat as an existential moment. 90% of the Israeli public oppose the deal, and 90% of Israelis don't agree on anything. Now, whether we conveyed clearly or not our fears about the Iran deal is an open question. Certainly, my friend, the former Israeli ambassador to this country did his best to try to explain why we were dreading that deal. And I remember actually having a conversation with Michael at the time, and I said to him, you know, I feel that this is the greatest threat that Israel, the Iran deal, is the greatest threat that Israel has faced since 1973 or maybe 1967. And Michael said, you're wrong. It's the greatest threat that we have faced since 1948. And there were many, many serious Israelis who believed that. And so the fact that the American Jewish community did not rally around Israel at that moment, did not tell President Obama, we have supported you unequivocally more than almost any other ethnic group in this country. On this issue, we can't support you. That was taken by many Israelis from the Prime Minister on down as a betrayal. And so if you put these two events together, the betrayal that Israelis felt toward American Jews about the Iran deal, and I'll tell you, you know, the day after the Iran deal, I sat down and started to write an op-ed. And the op-ed was basically saying to American Jews, for the last years we've been hearing about your growing alienation toward us. Well, let me return the favor. Fortunately, I never finished it and never sent it. And what one writes the morning after is not what one should necessarily release to the public on the morning after. But many Israelis still remain deeply wounded and have reached the conclusion, which I worry is a self-fulfilling conclusion, that liberal American Jews are now a write-off for Israel. And of course, on your side, the legitimate feeling that Israel is betraying American Jewry at one of your most desperate moments. Certainly in our time, I would say this is the most dangerous moment in my lifetime for American Jewry.